Hey guys, it's Jimmy here and welcome back to another video. Now today I'm going to be doing a sort of light review and discussion of F1 2016 and the sort of Simcade title that's been given to it and other games like it, and I want to discuss that a bit, talk about my thoughts on it and just sort of open a discussion with you guys in the comment section, because I'm very interested to hear the general consensus on this sort of rating of games, and because frankly it irks me quite a bit, but I'll get into that in a minute. Now, to start off, I'm actually ill, so I might sound a bit different, and I might cough and splutter, although you hopefully won't hear that because I am capable of editing. But yeah, just a sort of forewarning. Also, I do own chickens, and you might hear a rooster in the background, so if you do, sorry, but he always feels the need to chime in whenever I'm doing any sort of audio recording, which is good. Now, I'll start off by talking about what you're seeing in the background footage, F1 2016, which is what sort of sparks this video and this thought and this debate, I guess, with myself. Following the amount of people that have asked me about it, whether it's sim, whether it's arcade, or whether it comes into Simcade, which I guess I should also explain what they all mean. Now, a simulation, in my eyes, is a game that immerses you in the actor or the sim. For example, DCS World is a very good sim, as is R-Factor 2, as is iRacing, as is Assetto Corsa, I suppose. Maybe less so, but don't flame me, please. And arcade games are games that are a little bit more accessible. Games like maybe Burnout for racing, the old F1 games on the PS1, they were a bit more accessible to drive, although they were considered pretty realistic at the time. You get the idea. Games that maybe don't require as high of a specific skill level, but can still be very challenging and can still provide a lot of fun regardless. Now, Simcade, as unimaginative as that title is somewhere in the middle. People say, oh yeah, this game has simulation qualities, but still, it isn't as hardcore as I deem necessary for it to be a sim, which is something that I get very annoyed with, because that is a completely subjective view. But again, we'll get into that a bit later. Now, F1 2016, to accurately review a game or review the game's success, you have to think about what goals it set out to achieve when the game was in development, when it's being made. Now, the F1 franchise over the years has been just sort of a yearly update of a representation of the F1 World Championship, the horrible thing that keeps getting worse and worse each year. IMHO, again, please don't flame me. But in that respect, F1 2015 actually represented that pretty well, despite the fact that it was completely stripped out of features. But F1 2016 has gone above and beyond in that aspect. Now, in my opinion, F1 is about 70% about the racing and 30% about the bullshit that goes on behind the scenes, all the development and all that sort of stuff. And F1 2016 actually captures that really well. A lot of the career mode in F1, which I've started up recently, I've been sort of playing it on YouTube and streaming it. It's very good at getting you sort of immersed in that environment. You get to create your own character, create your own driver, which is a big plus over 2015, because I'm pretty sure that was a very stripped out version of what 2016 could have been. You get to create your own driver, your own helmet design, choose where you start, all those little things which are really interesting to me, to sort of place yourself physically in the game. Then once you're in the game, your character in the game, you're met with a sort of a hub, which is a laptop. You sit inside your team's hospitality unit, and you are immersed in that world straight away. I mean, you get the unfortunate experience of having to witness Crofty's face every time you go into the paddock area, but it's still pretty cool to see all those faces there and feel actually part of that world. And for me, that's one of the first things in a long line of features that make F1 2016 very sim-like. I mean, we've gone over the career already. You can sort of start from a team, you can develop the car, you can choose you have to do testing or practice in the practice sessions before the race. You have to sit down, talk to your team, talk about the program you want to do, and then go out and do that program. And depending on how you do in that program, if you drive well, if you drive poorly, you get a certain amount of research points that can be put in to upgrading your car, which I think is a fantastic idea, because it gives you control over what happens to your car. You can make it faster in a straight line, you can make it a bit better in the corners. All those little things, all those little developments you get in real life F1 season are now actually being given to you as a player to sort of have some sort of control over, which is monumentally different from anything we've seen in an F1 game from Codemasters up to this point. You can have there are rivalries as well. You get placed against your teammate. Your performance is pretty much as it is in real life, compared exactly against your teammate, and he is your biggest rival as the season gets underway. You have to make sure you're beating him, out qualifying him, and just generally making sure you're racing well compared to him, which I think is a fantastic idea. And again, in my eyes, very sim-like, because it's very realistic and very representative of the real life F1. You also have the pit engineer, which I think is probably one of the coolest things I've seen in the computer game or racing game up to this point, which is voice activated. It's very similar to the mod in Race Room, but it actually works, where you can hit your pit button, your pit radio button. The engineer will sort of like beep to say it's listening, and then you can say anything like, you can ask where your teammate is, you can ask the gap to the front, you can ask for a full race rundown, you can ask about the condition of your vehicle, and the AI, or Jeff, I guess he's come to know, will just sort of go, okay, and then give you that information in a way that is understandable and easy to absorb. And that is fantastic, because it actually creates, it's not just, in previous F1 games, you've had a sort of a radio from a one-ended radio where it will come through and say, oh, you've crashed, bad luck, or oh, there's someone in front of you, try and catch him. You can actually interact with your pit engineer, which, I mean, if you to go by modern F1, actually a big thing nowadays. People, the pit broadcast or the pit radio broadcasts are there for everyone to listen to, and it's now a big part of F1 having that sort of back and forth with the race engineer. And now you're being allowed to do that in this game, which I think is fantastic. I think it's again another fantastic sim feature from this game. And let's not forget graphs, ladies and gentlemen. There are graphs in this game when you're out doing your testing, your practice for your research development. There are physical graphs you can look at. Now, if that's not sim, I'm not quite sure what is. Spreadsheets, ladies and gentlemen, spreadsheets! But I guess what everyone's going to be judging this game on sim is where everyone seems to think is the most important aspect of a driving game, which I sort of agree, is the driving. And the driving is believable. It's probably the best driving model we've had out of an F1 game so far. Force feedback is pretty decent, loads up very nicely. You still get a bit of slow speed. A lot of these games have issues with slow speed corners, I think, where you just have no downforce, the car sort of slips around, and you don't really get enough communication through the wheel to be able to control that. But a lot of the time it's just smash the throttle, give it plenty of oversteer, and look like a badass coming out the corner. And that's something that F1's very good at. It's making you feel like a bit of a boss when you're driving around the wet. You have a massive slide through turn 2 at Melbourne, and you feel like you're the Don, you're the best driver on the grid, despite the fact you've lost like 10 seconds to the car behind you because you think you're a badass. But that is, again, very sim-like. You're there in the car, you're left fighting it. I recently streamed a F1 race from Melbourne, and that was a completely wet race, and that was one of the most fun races I've had in a racing game for a long time. My arms hurt afterwards. I had to really wrestle the car. I had to really fight against AI to sort of keep my position, and against the elements, of course. And it really made the whole experience very, very enjoyable. I wanted to do it again, which I think is a sign of a very good sim and a very good game at the same time. The AI, for the most part, are pretty good, but they're sort of unrefined. You'll see, especially in wet conditions, they like to sort of train. They like to stay on one line and not really get off the line to try and overtake each other. But when they do fight, and when they do try and overtake each other, it does sometimes end up, in an AI car taking another AI car off, which is pretty cool. I've seen a couple of instances where a car has just gone off on its own and retired from the race, which again is cool. It's nice to see the AI making mistakes. I don't like seeing AI being on rails. It is sort of 50-50 sometimes when you come alongside an AI, whether there'll be contact or not, because it may just be down to individual aggression files from the drivers. I'm not quite sure how that works specifically, so don't quote me on anything here. But there have been times where I've gone side by side, had the inside line, and sort of drifted out a little bit, as you do when you're coming inside, sort of take the position, and the AI has sort of just been there and it turns into you and you spin. But again, this could be down to the physical drivers or the player, because hey ho, who knows. Other than that, graphically it looks nice, as every F1 game does. There are some really horrendous looking models for the drivers, which is actually more comical than it is disappointing, so I'm not gonna judge on that really. And sound is what you expect it to be. It sounds like an F1 car. There's some glitch at the moment with the exterior sounds, but well, that'll be fixed soon. Yeah, again, coming back to sort of the crux of the point, Simcade, I'd put it as more of a simulation if you're going to think about what a simulation actually means. It really immerses you into the atmosphere. There is an FOV slider for the first time, I think, in a Codemasters F1 game where you can change the FOV in your cockpit, so you can actually get that sort of sim like FOV, which I think is again another big step forward for this game. And I think this is the Codemasters F1 game that we've all been waiting for. And I say that as someone who bought the first one that came out from Codemasters back in 2010, I think it was. I enjoyed that game, and they've sort of been going up and down over the years, and this is definitely the peak. So anyone who's in sort of two minds about this game, if you're an F1 fan, if you like the idea of developing your car, if you like the idea of a really immersive career mode, and just being able to drive a car that feels rewarding when you get it right, then F1 2016 is definitely a game for you. If you're someone who wants to look at tyre models, and wants to get the complete rundown of how everything works, including individual suspension movements and stuff like that, you won't get that from this game, but you'll get pretty close. So even for you guys, I'd recommend giving it a go. But anyway, guys, I hope this sort of opens your eyes a bit to the whole sort of sim versus arcade thing. Give a game a try, and if you enjoy it, just play it. It doesn't matter if it's sim or arcade, for crying out loud. This is the joy of racing games, is that it doesn't have to be super serious, but you can still have a good time with it. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this sort of ramble. Sorry that I'm sounding a bit croaky. And yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts as well, so make sure you comment down below on your thoughts on the situation. Of course, if you like the video, make sure to hit that like button and then subscribe to be notified of future videos. So until next time, guys, take care and have an awesome day.
Anthony Davidson, who would you go for?
I'm going to say Jenson Button. People always say he's a really smooth driver, but as he's shown here today, that's not at the expense of speed or overtaking skill.